Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where legends never sleep.
Welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries. Tonight, I want to put a small splinter under the nail of your Christmas comfort. Not a jump scare, not a monster waiting in the wardrobe. Something quieter, older, and far more unsettling, because it hides inside a sound you already trust. A song. If you grew up anywhere that December turns the sky into wet slate, you know the feeling. You're walking through a street that smells like cinnamon and exhaust, and a carol drifts out of a doorway. You don't choose to listen. The melody simply takes hold. It slips under your ribs like it belongs there. For a moment, the world behaves. People hold doors. Strangers smile. The cold feels like part of the story instead of an enemy. That's what carols do. They give winter a script. But they did not begin as soft ornaments or background noise for shopping centers. Before the glossy harmonies, before choirs in matching scarves, before the tidy promise of peace on earth, there were winter songs that were not meant to charm anyone. They were meant to protect. They were meant to warn something away. And one of them, if old accounts are to be believed, was not supposed to be sung at all. Not because it was sad, not because it was pagan, because it worked. The modern mind hears that and immediately reaches for safety, superstition, hysteria, priests overreacting. But the older world did not ban things lightly. It was cold, practical, and brutally honest about what fear could do. When people in the past were frightened, it was rarely because they were bored. It was because they were watching the same pattern repeat until it cut a groove in their lives. The story comes from a place that looks small on a map and enormous in a blizzard. A village where winter doesn't arrive politely, but with weight, where the fields go silent, where even the trees look like they're holding their breath. There was a church there, as there always was. Stone walls thick as stubbornness, a narrow bell tower, a roof that groaned under snow. Inside, candlelight and damp wood, and the faint iron smell of old nails. The village kept its calendar by that building. Baptisms, marriages, funerals, and the long, slow crawl back to December, when everyone wanted to believe that light could be invited back if you sang the right songs. And they did sing. The cheerful ones, the familiar ones, the songs that made children stop crying and hardened men soften for a moment. The vicar encouraged it. Music, he said, was a ladder for the soul. But there were other songs in the village, older than the vicar, older than the stones, songs that didn't belong to the service, but to the night outside it. Songs that were never written down, because ink is too proud for things like that. They lived in throats and bone memory, passed quietly from grandmother to child when the wind sounded wrong, hummed under breath on the road home when the lantern flame shook too much, sung softly into a child's hair when the child insisted they'd seen someone standing in the snow without footprints. The villagers had a name for those songs they never used near the church. They called them ward songs, not hymns, not carols, wards, like iron over a cradle, like salt at a threshold. The vicar, new to the parish and eager to be useful, discovered them the way outsiders always do, not by being told, but by noticing the silence. On certain nights, the village went quiet in a particular way, not the quiet of sleep, the quiet of listening. Children were brought indoors early. Dogs were dragged home by their collars, protesting. The air itself felt alert. And on one of those nights, the vicar heard singing. Not in the church, not in the inn, out on the road. Low and steady. A handful of men walking shoulder to shoulder, lanterns held high. Their voices weren't joyful or mournful. They were flat and deliberate, as if the words mattered more than the tune, as if the tune was only there to carry the words somewhere specific. The vicar watched from the porch and felt, against his will, that the singing was aimed at something that could hear it. When the men passed the edge of the churchyard, they turned their faces away from the graves. They didn't look at the windows. They didn't look at him. They walked on, still singing, until the darkness swallowed them. The next morning, he asked questions. No one answered properly. People never do when you ask about the things they fear. They offer jokes, shrugs, weather. But he persisted. Ignorance, he believed, was the enemy. Eventually, a woman who had lived long enough to stop caring about politeness fixed him with a look that made him feel young. "You heard them," she said. "Yes," he replied. "What was it?" She didn't name it. She didn't repeat the tune. "That's not for inside," she said. "Not for your books." "But it was sung," he argued. "And if it's a song, it can't be wrong." She smiled without warmth. "Some songs are doors," she said, "and some of us have learned not to open them." He dismissed it as superstition. He told himself he had come to guide these people, not be guided by their fears. Then the week turned, Christmas approached, the village prepared with tired hands and stubborn hope. Bread baked, candles poured, roofs patched, a pig slaughtered, children scrubbed and shushed. The vicar worked on his sermon and tried to ignore the feeling that there was a second calendar running beneath the church calendar, marking different dates and different dangers. On Christmas Eve, the church was full. Wet wool, hot breath, pine branches by the altar, candlelight making the shadows restless. Packed close together, it felt right, as if warmth could be manufactured by belief. They sang the approved songs. The vicar led them, confident. The villagers followed. He watched their faces glow and felt foolish for worrying. The world was simple. You sing, and you feel better. Then, at the back of the church, a child began to hum. Soft at first, almost lost beneath the larger singing, a thin thread of sound, but it wasn't part of the carol. It bent the wrong way. The vicar's ear caught it like a hook. A woman stiffened. Someone turned sharply. The child hummed again, louder, and an old man's voice joined it. One note, then words that didn't belong to any hymn book. The congregation hesitated. Not confusion, something sharper, like a muscle preparing to flinch. The vicar should have stopped it. Every sensible person would say that. But he was curious and proud, and some part of him wanted to prove that fear had no power inside a church. So he didn't. The melody spread, not quickly, but inevitably. People fell silent, listened, then joined, as if the sound had reached down and pulled their throats open. The vicar didn't understand the words. They were old and warped by time, but the tone was unmistakable. This was not praise, it was an address. It felt as though the village, in one breath, had turned away from heaven and spoken directly into the dark. The candles flickered, all of them, leaning the same way, as if something had passed through the air and left a path. A baby cried, sharp and panicked. A dog outside barked once, then went quiet. Cold bloomed in the vicar's chest. The singing continued, steady now. The old man sang like someone doing a chore. The woman sang too, jaw tight, as if swallowing something bitter. The vicar looked at the stained glass. Beyond it, the night pressed close, and in one corner, he thought he saw movement. Not a figure, just a presence, like someone standing too close behind you. Then the church door creaked, not opening, not moving, just pressure, as if pushed from the outside. The singing wavered. In the brief silence, the vicar heard scratching, slow, careful, as if a fingernail traced the wood. No one breathed. Then the old man sang louder, forcing the song onward, and the village followed like a rope pulled tight. The scratching stopped. The pressure eased. The vicar understood, with a clarity that had nothing to do with theology, that this was a negotiation. He caught a repeated phrase, not welcome, not wanted, not yours. The song ended without relief. It simply stopped. After a pause, the congregation returned to the approved carol. It sounded thin by comparison. The service ended quickly. People left without lingering. The cold outside felt attentive. Later, the vicar confronted the woman in the churchyard. "What was that song?" he asked. "You let it in," she said. "It sounded like a protection," he insisted. "It is," she replied, "and it isn't." She spoke of the thin part of the year, of things that move along the edges, call them spirits, hunger, cold given a name. The song, she said, told them to pass on, but it also told them they were remembered. "That's power," the vicar whispered. "That's the danger." He asked if something had been outside the door. She answered with a question instead. "When the scratching stopped," she said, "why did it stop?" That night the vicar realized the tune was simple, catchy, designed to spread, to lodge itself in the mind. He understood why you would ban such a thing, not because it was ugly, but because it was easy, and easy things travel. After Boxing Day, tracks were found in the snow near the church, not human, not animal, just disturbed ground, as if something heavy had tested the edges. Salt was scattered, iron was hung, evergreen nailed above doors, not for cheer, but for something older. No one sang the ward song again. Years passed. The vicar stayed. He learned that faith was not a weapon, but a lantern. And every Christmas Eve, he listened. Not to the choir, to the spaces between notes, to the door, to the wind. And if he ever heard a child begin to hum that forbidden melody, he drowned it immediately in something safe. Because he had learned a practical truth. Some songs are not entertainment, they are communication. And when you sing into the dark, you should be prepared for the dark to sing back. If tonight's story made you listen a little closer to the winter outside your window, don't worry. That's what we do here. This has been Bedtime Myths and Mysteries. If you want more strange winter history and forbidden traditions hiding in plain sight, subscribe and come back for the next one.
Not welcome here, not yours to take. We mark the door, we bar the gate. The frost knows you, the stone knows you, but this hearth does not. Turn away, you were not called, you cannot stay. Turn away, we sing you back into the grave. The bells won't ring, the bread won't rise. We shut the windows, douse the lights. You walk this road